Hi, everyone, and welcome to what I think is one of the most important subjects for any Salesforce developer. Any developer which extends the system capabilities by writing code and not only doing the standard implementations knows that today writing Visualforce and Apex is great, but it's not enough. In order to increase adoption of our users, we need to provide them fast and smooth user experience. And in order to do that, we have to use some advanced JavaScript libraries like Angular. Before I begin, I hope that everyone knows our forward-looking statement. And for the ones who doesn't know it, basically, we want you to consider, before you consider buying our product, so base your purchasing decision on our available features and not on something that's supposed to come in the future. So the agenda for today, we'll start with a short introduction. We then move for some motivation. Then we'll speak about our challenges that we are facing in the industry. After that, I will introduce you to our use case, and we will talk about 5 approaches to make the development for this use case. We'll speak about the pros and cons for each one of those approaches, and we'll demo it, and we'll show how we can reduce the load time while using some advanced libraries like Angular. So a few notes about myself. I'm Itzik Bejarano, and I'm just started my second year at Salesforce. I'm part of the CSG organization, CSG group, which is the customer success group. I'm leading the strategic project team in Israel, and we provide remote and on-site architecture and development services for EMEA and for AMER. I'm working in the Salesforce industry for the past 8 years, and I took part in many implementation projects from SMB, short implementation projects, to a large-scale enterprise end-to-end project. So let's start with some motivation. As you all know, our world is changing, and organizations start to become more and more mobile. And user experience is a key factor for user adoption. Our end users are getting used to a fast and smooth user interface, user experience, and we must provide them the same experience that they are facing in their private application, and the same we need to provide them in their work applications. When I say user experience, I mean one of the key factors that in user experience, I mean latency. And when I talk about latency, so every second counts. And it's not only me saying, also Google research, and they found out that an increase of 200 milliseconds in the page load latency caused the users to make less search during the time. Also, Amazon found out that 100 milliseconds increase in the latency of the page load caused them a loss of 1% in sales. So in order to provide our users a smooth user experience, we are facing many challenges. Databases are getting bigger and bigger. It's not something that's supposed to end up in the near future. Also, the page size is dramatically growing, as you see in this graph. And this thing also not supposed to stop in the near future. Our mobile device CPU is not as strong as our personal computer CPU, and that limits our client-side functionality. And one of the biggest challenges that we are facing is the internet connectivity. many areas around the globe and in the US also still has some low internet connectivity. And when I say internet connectivity, I mean 2G and even GPRS internet connectivity, which is very, very slow. And we must to provide our customer, our end user, we might provide our end user the same user experience, or at least almost the same user experience, where they are at the road, at areas which has a very low internet connectivity, and also when they are at the city centers where they have some good internet connectivity. Okay, so we'll talk about our use case, and then we'll try to see several approaches to how to make the development for our use case. So we're talking about F&B company, which is for food and beverage, which are working in the CPG industry. General F&B is a B2B company which sells food and beverages to a small supermarket all around the US. We have a broad product line of about 10,000 products. And our sales rep meets each and every customer at their business location. Many supermarkets located in areas which has slow internet connectivity. And in order to make our sales rep to create an order, we need to provide them a page, a simple page with a simple table, which has all of our 10K products. And our sales rep will just enter the quantity for each of our products and create an order in our Salesforce. Okay? So the 5 approaches that we will look at, we'll start with a simple client-side pagination. Basically, what we'll do is we will have a table, and we won't show the whole 10,000 products. What we'll do, we will make a pagination, and this pagination will show each page 10 products. So the first functionality, which work with the client-side pagination, and then we'll make another client-side pagination while we minimize the data arriving for each call. Then we will make server-side pagination, and then we'll go to a server-side pagination while again minimizing the data arrived from the server. And then at last, we'll go to something which combine the server-side pagination, the server side and the client side, and we'll do something like that called lazy loading. Okay? So I will just switch. So we'll start with a short demo of our client-side pagination. And what did I do, which I will do, is I will simulate an area with some 2G internet connectivity. And now we will be able to see, if I refresh the page, we will be able to see the time that it takes for our page to load. So basically, what is client-side pagination? What we're doing is that we are querying all of the 10K products at the server side, okay, at the controller, and then our server generates the HTML at the server side. And once all the HTML is generated, it sends it to the client side, and the client side show the whole HTML. And then our Jquery will take the whole table and make it into pagination, make the pagination functionality. As you can see, it takes a long time to load it. And that's because we're querying all the data in the server and moving everything to the client. So as we see, it took about 43 seconds. As you can see, I'm not sure that you can, but basically here, it says 43 seconds to load the page with this client-side pagination. But now, when we have all the data in our client side, each time that we move between the pages, it will be instantly, and there will be no time that we need to go to the server to bring some more data. Okay? So to summarize this client-side pagination, So the technology that we are using here is Apex. We're using HTML Visualforce and Jquery for the pagination, for the data table pagination. The pros for this approach is low development complexity, short waiting time on each request. On each time that we move between the pages, it will be a very short time because we have all the data in our client. And the cons, of course, will be the long page load on the page start. When you start the page, it takes us a long time. It takes us about 50 seconds to load the page. And what I show you here is just a very simple table, just very simple data, no images, no complexity design, nothing. And it took 50 seconds. And of course, if you make something much more robust, so it will take much longer. Okay? So now we'll move to the second approach. So basically, the second approach is the same client side, the same thing. We will query the data at the server, move it to the client, and we will show the data. The difference is that in this approach, we will query the data, we will query all of our data, but we will send a JSON to the client, okay? And the JSON will contain only our data. It won't contain the whole HTML and everything that the Visualforce can create for us. And when you send only the JSON, so the package that needs to transfer during the internet, during the network, is much more small. It is much smaller, and it's of course takes less time. Then, when our JSON comes to the client side, we are using Angular in order to make the DOM manipulation, and the Angular creates this whole table and create the whole HTML. But this is happened at the client side, okay? So as you can see, just by making this small change, we reduce from around 45 seconds to 35 seconds, which is 10 seconds less, which is around 25%, something like that, yeah? 20%, which is a lot. So let's summarize this approach. So in this approach, the technology that we used was Apex, again. Apex for the server side, HTML and Visualforce for the client side, and Angular for the DOM manipulation and for taking the JSON and create the HTML. Yeah, that was the technology. The pros for this approach is a shorter page load than the client side that we had. I'm sorry, I didn't show you one thing. That, again, when we move between the pages, of course, it is instantly because we have all our records, all the data, we have it already at the client side. Okay? So, again, the pros will be a shorter page load time, but it's still a long, as you see, long page load. Still 36 seconds, it's a long time to wait for a page to load, okay? It's a low complexity in the development. I can show you the code. Basically, the server side is one line of a query, generate into JSON and send it to the client. It's a very simple code. Also, the HTML is very simple for people who know Angular or know any other, or React, Lightning, whatever. It is very simple to do that. And the last pros will be the short waiting on each request, and every time that we move between the pages, it is very short time because we have all the data already in our client. So now we move to the server-side pagination. And basically, the server-side pagination, what we're doing is we query much less data. We query only the data that we want to show at the beginning. So if our table has 10 products on each page, so what we will do is that we will query only 10 records, generate again the HTML at the server side, and send it to the client side with only 10 records, a very small, very short HTML. As you can see, it took us about 20 seconds to make for the page to load, which is not so short time, but it's not long time like we had in the client-side pagination. Okay? But now, because we don't have all the data in our client side, so each time that we move between pages, we'll need to wait. It's not a long waiting, but it takes around 2 seconds between each time that we move between the pages. So this is not something that any sales rep, anyone will agree to do. If you have your own apps, if you're using Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, think about it. You need to wait 2 seconds between each page that you move, between each transaction that you are doing in your application. It doesn't make sense. You will never use this app. You will throw it. So we can't give the same. We can't give such a user experience for our sales rep, and we need something better. So again, let's try to summarize this server-side approach. So the technology that we are using, again, it's Apex and HTML or Visualforce. Very simple development again. It is just, again, one line at the server side. We're using the same method to make the pagination and the same method to make the page load. The pros, low complexity on development, not very, but short, long time of the page. And the cons, of course, will be the long load time on each request, on each move between pages. It takes a long time to move between them. We'll move now to the fourth approach, which is the server-side pagination while we minimize the amount of data. So basically what we're doing here is the same thing that we did at the client side. We are still using the same approach of server-side pagination. That means that every time that we click the next button, we will go to the server, get the next amount of data, and come back to the client. But we will not generate the whole HTML at the server. We will just get the data by JSON and send it to the client. Okay? Now, if you can see, so every time that I click next, it is much faster. It took around, I will let you know, it took less than half a second, okay? While in the server side that we had before, it took about 2 seconds. So it's 75% reduction at the time that we're waiting for the server to bring the next amount of data. And again, I want to say it again. This is a very simple, very small demo with low amount of data, with no images, with nothing complex, with no complex design. And when we will make applications or web pages which has much more complex design, so it will take much longer, and we will see the differences between those approaches in a much more in much more scale. So I will try to summarize this approach. So we're using, again, the technology Apex, HTML, and Angular for the DOM manipulation when we're bringing back the JSON with all the data. So the Angular generate our HTML and generate our table. The pros will be a medium development complexity. It is a little bit more complex than the one we had before. And the pros also the short, long time of the page load. The cons will be the medium long time on each request. Still half a second. It's not immediate like we had at the client side. Okay. It's not so long, but it's not immediately like we had a client side, and we want to have it immediately. We want to have everything now. We don't want to wait to anything. We don't want to wait to anyone. And this is the level that our end users expect us to provide them. So for that, we'll move to the last approach, and the last approach will be the lazy loading. So how many of you know what is the lazy loading? OK, nice. So basically, lazy loading is that we will bring the first part that the end user needs to see, and at the background, we will bring the other data that we know that he will want to see in the future. For example, your Gmail. I guess that most of you has a Gmail account. So Gmail bring when you open a Gmail, you can see all of your emails in your Gmail account. And in the background, Gmail bring the next amount of emails that you have. And also, they bring the emails that you're able to go into. OK? So basically, this is what we will do here. What we're doing is, at the page load, we will bring the first 10 records. And now, if you can see at this monitoring, you can see that the network is still working. It still brings the next and the next and the next pages. So now, when I move to the next page, it will be instantly. OK? I will not need to wait because it is doing at the background. So when our sales rep will get to the client and he will come to the first page, until he will finish to go over the first amount of product, and he will get the order for this first amount of product, so the next at least 10 pages, 10 or 100 products will be already ready, and he can move between the pages without waiting at all. So to summarize the lazy loading, so the technology that we used was Apex, HTML, and Angular. Again, Apex, we're using it as a remote action. And HTML we're using at the client side, and Angular, again, for the DOM manipulation. The pros for this approach will be a short page load time and a short page load on each request. Each time that we are moving between the pages will be very fast, will be instantly, basically. And the cons will be a high development complexity. So again, those examples are pretty simple, so it's not so hard to make the development. But again, if you want to make much more complex application, so we need to better know how to use Angular or any other advanced JavaScript libraries that provide us those capabilities. To summarize, to summarize our approaches. So when we spoke about the client-side pagination, so it took the page load about 50 seconds, and then we minimize it, the client-side pagination, and it took us 38 seconds. Then we moved to the client-side pagination, server-side pagination, and took us about 20 seconds, while also at the lazy loading, because basically when we load the first 10 records, it's the same as the server-side pagination. However, when we move between the pages, so when we had the client side, it was instantly. When we moved to the server side, it took us 2 seconds, and when we reduced the amount of data, it took us half a second. But when we move to the lazy loading, we get the pros of all of those approaches. We get also the page load, the first page load, which was fast, and also we get the instantly move between pages. So, some key takeaways. Oh, sorry. So, to start, I would say you should go and start learn some new innovative technology. And it's not have to be Angular. It could be React. It could be Lightning. It could be any other client-side technology. After you better understand how to use those client-side technology, you should better understand how to use them within the Force.com platform. It's not always very clean, the move between just making those application as is or using them in the Force.com or at cloud at all. And then get your use case, analyze it, choose the right approaches, the development approaches for your page, and just start develop it. Questions? What version? So basically here I use the AngularJS, not the Angular 2. But the Angular 2 it's very different from the AngularJS. It's using TypeScript. It's something else. I know that there is a session here of using Angular 2 with the TypeScript within Salesforce. So if you're interested, so just look at your agenda and do that. If you need to sort the list, okay. If you need to sort the list, which approaches will you use? So basically, again, I will use the lazy loading because if you need to sort the list, so you need to know which data you have. Okay? So if you're using the lazy loading, again, it's a little complex because until you move the until you have all the data, it takes longer. So again, as I said at the last key takeaways, so you need to better understand what is your use case, and not on all the use cases I will use the same approach. So it's very different. Like if you have a certain use case, we can discuss offline and better understand that. When there is a limitation on the remote object, you can query up to 1,000 records, and you're asking how you can extend this limitation. So basically, again, I need to better understand. I'm not sure it's related to those approaches and the subject of this presentation. But if you want, we can take it offline. Just tell me what is your use case, and I will try to help you. Okay? Sorry. How you can get instant time?
Yeah.
Okay. So because when the lazy loading, okay, so first of all, you get the first 10 records, and at the background, there is a lot of server requests, and they bring the next amount of data. Okay? So once you want to click the next button, you have already in your client the next amount of data, and then because of that, it is instantly.
I see.
Yeah?
When you click next, you're still getting from the server.
When you click next, it's already in your client.
Just in the background is loading.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.